The coffee was still too hot, steaming the glass of the bay window in the morning sun, when the envelope landed on the antique mahogany desk with a soft, decisive thud of fate. Aurelia Vance, a woman whose elegance was subtle, not flashy, and whose wealth was the quiet kind that grew rather than advertised, did not recognize the law firm's crest. She certainly hadn't solicited legal advice. She tore the thick linen paper with a slow, building dread. Inside, the language was sterile, precise, and utterly monstrous. A formal notice of intent to file a petition for temporary and permanent guardianship, conservatorship, over the person and estate of Aurelia Vance, citing evidence of diminished capacity and financial mismanagement. Aurelia's hand trembled, scattering drops of coffee onto the polished wood. Diminished capacity. Financial mismanagement. Her, the woman who had personally navigated the volatile waters of venture capital for 2 decades before retiring to a quiet life of philanthropy and gardening? She scanned the document for the petitioner's name. The blood drained from her face, leaving a cold, hollow space behind her eyes. Lysander Thorne. Her own nephew. The boy she had raised from a difficult, rebellious teenager. The man whose entire supposed success she had bankrolled just 6 short months ago. She felt not the white-hot flash of anger, but a profound, sickening cold. It wasn't the pain of being cheated. It was the crushing weight of being judged incompetent by the one person she had trusted to carry her legacy. The audacity was dizzying. Lysander, who had been on the verge of bankruptcy with his disruptive tech idea, now wanted to declare her unfit to manage her own finances. The very finances that had built his fledgling empire. Aurelia pushed away from the desk, the heavy leather chair scraping on the floor, and began to pace. Her mind, usually a calm, orderly archive, became a furious ledger, meticulously detailing the transactions of her love and capital, transforming every dollar spent into an accusation. She pulled up her investment records, the figures glowing on the screen like neon markers of her folly. The quantification of abuse had begun. "Let's quantify this," she whispered to the quiet room, her voice dangerously even. "Let's truly see the cost of this particular brand of filial betrayal." Initial seed capital for Ethelred Tech, June 2025. Lysander had arrived, panicked and sweating, claiming he needed a bridge loan to save his prototype. He promised the moon. She cut him a check from her personal savings account, not her investment portfolio, to show her faith. $200,000. Operating expenses and office space, July-September 2025, when Ethelred Tech stalled due to his inability to manage basic logistics. He pleaded for help. She paid 3 months of his downtown office rent, covered his CTO's salary for 2 months, and even paid off a short-term, high-interest business loan that threatened to sink them. $78,500. The family bailouts. Over the last 5 years, this was the emotional tax. The late-night calls. The credit card debt paid off because he just needed a fresh start. The tuition for his ill-conceived, accelerated business course. The deposits on 2 different, failed apartment leases. $35,000. She tallied the visible hard dollar expenditure, the foundation of Ethelred Tech, now Lysander's fortress from which he was launching his legal siege against her. The total sat starkly on the screen. $313,500. A small fraction of her overall wealth, but a monumental sum of misdirected trust and emotional investment. She realized the betrayal wasn't about the money. It was about the ingratitude. He had taken her resources, then sought to silence her completely by legally erasing her competence. The pain shifted from grief to a cold, razor-sharp resolve. The next morning, Aurelia drove out to meet her oldest and most trusted confidant, Caspian Holt. Caspian, a retired judge and her only true friend since her husband's passing, was tending his prized bonsai collection. He listened, silent and grave, as Aurelia recounted the details, the letter resting on his patio table. "Lysander is citing my erratic behavior and inappropriate financial choices, meaning funding his disastrous startup. Do you see what he's doing, Caspian? He's using my kindness as a weapon against my own mind." Caspian did not offer immediate comfort. Instead, He confirmed the depths of the conspiracy, the crisis of confidence Lysander had engineered. Aurelia, I hate to say this, but I've been hearing whispers, Caspian said, trimming a tiny, perfect branch. Lysander's mother, your sister Selena, has been circulating stories in the club. She's claiming you've been increasingly forgetful, that you misplaced a significant sum, and that your philanthropy is becoming reckless. They're preemptively poisoning the well, darling. They're building their case on gossip and innuendo to create a public record of your supposed decline. Aurelia felt a spike of nausea. Selena, her own sister, the woman who had always been envious of Aurelia's success, was the accomplice. The betrayal was familial, systemic. They weren't just stealing her money, they were attempting to steal her reputation and her identity. They're not subtle, are they? Aurelia said, a faint, dangerous smile touching her lips. They're leveraging a kindness meant to empower him into a legal tool to disempower me. It's an elegant, if repulsive, strategy. She left Caspian's house with a reinforced sense of isolation but a clear strategic objective. The bleeding had to stop. Now. The time for emotional investment was over. That evening, the moment of the first cut, the power reversal, arrived with a chime on her private phone line. Lysander. His voice was frantic, not arrogant. Aunt Aurelia, thank God you picked up. We have a problem. A major problem. The server farm lease? It's due immediately, and the venture capital firm is dragging their feet. I need a wire transfer, $50,000, immediately. Just a loan, I swear. I'll pay you back when the series closes next month. Aurelia took a deep, steadying breath. Her hand rested on the keyboard, inches from logging into the accounts he still believed he had access to. Lysander, is that you? She asked, her voice sounding remote, almost ethereal. Yes, it's me. Hurry, Auntie. The clock is ticking. I need access to the bridge account now. I'm afraid I can't do that, dear boy, Aurelia replied, her tone a smooth, unbreakable sheet of ice. A pause stretched across the line, heavy with Lysander's confusion. Can't? What do you mean, can't? Just log in and process the transfer. It's an emergency. The account you are referring to, the one labeled Ethelred Bridge Fund, was officially and permanently closed this morning, Aurelia stated, as if announcing the weather. As was the account linked to the corporate credit card you seem to be using for personal expenses. Effective immediately, Ethelred Tech, and by extension you, Lysander, are on your own. My funding has ceased. My support has ended. Lysander spluttered, the panic turning immediately into indignant rage. You can't do that. You promised. You're the reason Ethelred is solvent. If you pull this, the company will collapse, and it'll be on your head. Have you gone completely mad? This is erratic financial behavior. Aurelia walked to the window, watching the streetlights flick on in the fading dusk. She delivered her final, devastating one-liner. Then let it collapse, Lysander. You will find that I have no longer the capacity to care. The line went dead. The silence that followed was the sound of a clean break. But the silence didn't last. A text message flashed on her screen less than a minute later, an all-caps scream that transitioned from desperation to a chilling cliffhanger. You'll regret this, Aurelia. You just proved my case. I'm sending the lawyer first thing tomorrow. You're not fit to run a lemonade stand, let alone a venture fund. You watch what happens when I challenge you in court. You just lost all control. Aurelia deleted the message without a flicker of expression. The fight had moved from a private argument to a public, legal war for her very sanity and control. The threat materialized exactly as Lysander had promised. The following morning, the tranquility of Aurelia's impeccably organized life was shattered by the arrival of a sleek, black sedan pulling into her circular drive. Two figures emerged. Lysander, visibly agitated and dressed in a suit that was clearly straining at the seams, and a woman in a severe grey ensemble, carrying a heavy, leather-bound briefcase. This was the confrontation and the legal attack. Aurelia met them at the entrance, standing on the threshold, the boundary between her sanctuary and their aggression. She wore a simple, elegant ivory silk dress, projecting a quiet confidence that mocked Lysander's nervous sweat. "Good morning, Lysander," Aurelia greeted him, her voice cool and devoid of warmth. "I see you've brought your entourage. Unfortunately, I did not authorize an appointment." Lysander pushed past her, his face tight with controlled desperation. "Aunt Aurelia, stop this madness. This is Ms. Devereux, my legal counsel. She's here to discuss the management of your assets. We have filed preliminary paperwork requesting an emergency financial assessment." Ms. Devereux stepped forward, her expression professionally severe. "Ms. Vance, my client is deeply concerned about recent erratic decisions you have made, particularly the sudden and catastrophic withdrawal of capital from Ethelred Tech. Given this pattern, we are seeking conservatorship on the basis of protecting your estate from what appears to be self-sabotage due to, and I quote, advanced age and mental instability." The words hung in the air. Conservatorship. Lysander, standing beside her, wanted to seize her autonomy, her life's work, and hand it to his corporate lawyer. The rage that had been simmering in Aurelia boiled over, but she kept her composure rigid. "Advanced age." Aurelia repeated, a small, dangerous smile appearing. "I am 42, Ms. Devereux. I retired young, not old. And mental instability. I call it finally deciding to stop funding a drain on my resources." Lysander was frantic now. "Auntie, this is serious. If you don't sign these forms, we will lose everything. The petition will be officially served this afternoon. Just give me the codes, let Ms. Devereux manage the portfolio for 6 months, and we can all move on. We are trying to help you." Aurelia looked directly into Lysander's eyes, a lifetime of affection incinerated in that single hard gaze. "You are not trying to help me, Lysander. You are attempting elder financial abuse with a legal veneer. And the only thing you will lose today is your access to my house." She took a decisive step back and pointed to the massive oak door. "Ms. Devereux, you are trespassing on private property. Lysander, your entitlement ends here. You have 10 seconds to vacate the premises before I call the police and file a restraining order for harassment and trespassing." Ms. Devereux, realizing the protagonist was neither frail nor confused, gathered her things quickly. Lysander, however, lingered, his mouth forming a silent, hateful gasp of disbelief. "You'll regret this, Aurelia. This is far from over." Aurelia didn't bother to reply. She merely stepped back, closed the door with a firm thunk of the deadbolt, and stood listening until the sound of the black sedan faded into the distance. She was safe for now, but the reality of the legal threat was chilling. Aurelia knew the kind of lawyer Lysander would hire: aggressive, corporate, and ethically flexible. She needed the opposite. She needed a shield, not a sword. The search for the ethical lawyer led her to a small but fiercely respected firm known for taking on complicated cases of trust and fiduciary duty. She was introduced to Mr. Silas Finch. Silas was late middle-aged, with kind eyes and a sharp, almost cynical intellect honed by years in family law. He listened to Aurelia's story, not interrupting once, occasionally leaning back to tap his pen rhythmically against a notepad. "This, Ms. Vance," Silas stated, pushing the conservatorship notice back across the desk, "is a classic predatory legal maneuver. Your nephew, having exhausted your generosity, now seeks to legally remove your ability to say no. They rely on the courts assuming that any elderly person being sued by a younger family member must, axiomatically, be losing their grip." Aurelia felt a rush of relief. Finally, someone validated the injustice. The good news is that at 42, and with your professional background, the diminished capacity argument is laughable on its face. The bad news is that conservatorship cases are messy, slow, and designed to bleed the estate dry through legal fees. They are weaponizing the system. Silas's advice was precise and strategic. "First, every single communication from this moment on must go through me. No direct contact with Lysander or your sister, Selina. We need to establish clear boundaries for harassment." Second, you must immediately document, meticulously, every single gift, loan, and financial transaction related to Lysander and Ethelred Tech. We need the paper trail to prove their motive is not concern, but financial insolvency and greed. Third, we will need a neutral medical assessment of your cognitive abilities. We preempt their inevitable move to question your sanity. Aurelia nodded, already mobilizing her archives. I can do all of that, Mr. Finch. I can give you 30 years of perfectly managed accounts. I can give you the documentation on that $313,500 that now fuels their malice. Excellent, Silas said, giving her a serious look. We will turn their charge of financial mismanagement into proof of elder abuse. We will make Lysander and his mother prove your incompetence, and in the process, prove their own malice. Back home, Aurelia began the process of establishing new control. First, security. A local locksmith changed every tumbler in her home, rendering the old set of keys, which Lysander still believed he possessed, useless. Next, she had a discreet but high-definition camera system installed, pointing toward the drive and all entrances. Every piece of evidence of future harassment would be recorded. Finally, she moved all high-value assets to a private trust managed by a new, separate bank, with only Silas Finch as an authorized co-signer. The bridge was not just burned, it was vaporized. Feeling slightly less besieged, Aurelia attended her weekly literary club meeting, a source of quiet intellectual stimulation. It was there she found her social ally, the army, in Beatrice Sterling, a sharp-tongued, formidable woman in her late 70s who had been a state senator's chief of staff. When Aurelia, after the meeting, quietly confided in Beatrice about the legal battle, she expected pity. She received ironclad solidarity. A conservatorship claim? From your own nephew. Beatrice's eyes narrowed with political fury. That is the oldest trick in the book, dear. It is not about your money. It is about control. They want to legally silence your no. I have seen this happen to friends countless times. Greedy children turning the system on their parents. It is a disgusting, corrosive form of financial parricide. Beatrice leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You do not fight them with fear, Aurelia. You fight them with the cold, hard certainty that you are sane, documented, and supported. And you need to look the part. If they are claiming you are declining, you must appear to be thriving. I'm just not sure I have the energy for thriving right now, Beatrice, Aurelia confessed. Nonsense. This is war. And in war, you maintain impeccable morale, Beatrice commanded. You are the wronged party. Act like it. We, your friends, are your army. If you need us to testify to your stable genius and impeccable character, we will. Just ask. Beatrice's words were a direct catalyst for the transformation, self-investment. The next day, Aurelia did something she hadn't done since her husband's death. She spent a significant amount of money entirely on herself. She started with her appearance. A long overdue appointment with a top stylist resulted in a sophisticated, contemporary cut that emphasized the sharp angles of her jaw and the cool intelligence in her eyes. Next, she purchased a small, curated collection of business formal clothing that exuded power and discipline. Crisp tailoring, rich fabrics. The point wasn't vanity. It was strategic presentation. If she was to enter a courtroom where her competence was being judged, she needed to look like the most competent person in the room. This self-investment was a declaration of war, a visual rejection of the erratic, declining narrative. The piece lasted exactly 2 days. Lysander, having realized his financial lifeline was permanently severed, escalated his campaign from legal threats to relentless harassment. The calls began again, often late at night, dozens of them, from burner numbers, sometimes silent, sometimes full of garbled, drunken accusations. Then came the emails, forwarded from Selena, claiming Aurelia was suffering from paranoid delusions and needed immediate psychiatric intervention. Aurelia, working strictly through Silas Finch, gathered all the documentation. Phone records, camera footage of the lawyer's visit, and the threatening messages. We need a restraining order, Silas. I cannot focus on preparing our case while fending off daily attacks, she instructed. Silas agreed. It's the right move. It formally establishes a pattern of aggressive, hostile behavior on his part, which contradicts his claim of benevolent concern for your welfare. The restraining order was filed. But Lysander, desperate and cornered, raised the stakes to a terrifying degree. Silas Finch called Aurelia late that Tuesday, his voice grave. Ms. Vance, Lysander's lawyer, has officially notified the court. They have gone the institutional route. They submitted an emergency petition based on the alleged harassment and erratic behavior you displayed towards Lysander and his mother. They have leveraged a contact in the municipal system and convinced a judge to authorize an investigation. You are being officially investigated by a social worker, assigned by the court, who will be assessing your living conditions and, more importantly, your mental stability. A cold dread washed over Aurelia, surpassing even the initial shock of betrayal. They were no longer just trying to steal her money. They were attempting to use the state's power to label her mentally ill and strip her of her civil rights. The arrival of the court-appointed social worker, Ms. Petra Chen, marked the apex of the institutional attack and reversal. Aurelia, armed with Silas Finch's meticulous instructions and her own fierce composure, refused to be cowed by the state's intrusion. Ms. Chen was a serious, tired woman, clearly accustomed to dealing with genuine crises. She arrived precisely on time, prepared to assess the home of a supposedly deteriorating, elderly woman. Instead, she found a pristine, well-maintained residence, a working woman's schedule clearly outlined on the kitchen calendar, and a host who was nothing short of intellectually formidable. Aurelia did not attempt to be overly charming. She was purely professional. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming. Mr. Finch informed me of your visit. I understand my nephew and sister have made serious, unfounded claims regarding my well-being. Ms. Chen consulted her clipboard. The petition alleges severe paranoia, erratic financial behavior, specifically, the sudden withdrawal of capital from a key family investment, and a hostile, verbally abusive response to a welfare check. My mandate is to ensure the environment is safe and to conduct a preliminary assessment of your cognitive state. Please look around, Aurelia invited, gesturing around the well-lit, organized living space. You'll find my environment is more than safe. As for the financial claims, my lawyer anticipated this. Aurelia presented Ms. Chen with a concise, professionally bound folder. It contained a letter from Silas Finch, detailing the predatory nature of Lysander's conservatorship petition. The documented $313,500, showing the total sum Aurelia had provided to Ethelred Tech, clearly labeled as investment capital, not a personal loan. The restraining order petition, including transcripts of Lysander's threatening texts and the chronology of his harassment following the funding cutoff. The erratic financial behavior, Ms. Chen, was simply me stopping the bleeding of my personal funds into a failing venture, Aurelia explained, her voice steady. My nephew's welfare check was a demand for immediate cash flow. When I refused, they escalated from simple greed to fabricating a narrative of mental instability to seize control of my assets. Ms. Chen spent an hour observing Aurelia, noting her sharp answers, her clear articulation, and the systematic presentation of evidence. The discrepancy between Lysander's frantic, desperate claims and Aurelia's cool, documented reality was stark. When Ms. Chen prepared to leave, her expression had shifted from neutral caution to professional concern. Not for Aurelia, but for Lysander. Ms. Vance, Chen said, closing her file. I will file my report with the court by the end of the day. Based on the evidence provided and my assessment of your living conditions and cognitive coherence, I will be recommending the closure of the institutional investigation. It appears the petitioner's motivations are highly questionable, and the claims of neglect or diminished capacity are entirely unfounded. Aurelia had successfully turned the state's weapon back on its wielder. Lysander had aimed to use the authority system to prove her unstable. She had used it to prove his malice. The setback only fueled Lysander's desperation, leading to the falsification of evidence. Silas Finch discovered that Lysander, on the advice of Ms. Devereux, had taken a truly unethical step. He had tricked a former business associate, Dr. Elias Shaw, a psychologist who had done a single brief employee motivation seminar for Ethelred Tech months ago, into signing an affidavit. The affidavit alleged that Aurelia had approached Dr. Shaw after the seminar, exhibiting signs of acute anxiety, rapid mood shifts, and delusional paranoia regarding her financial state. The claim was a bold-faced lie, but Dr. Shaw's signature gave it weight. This was a critical piece of falsified medical evidence designed to bypass the failure of the social worker's report. Aurelia knew confronting Lysander was useless, but she realized Dr. Shaw had likely been manipulated or misled. She reached out to him directly, bypassing the lawyers to speak to the man's conscience. Dr. Shaw met her in a neutral public park, looking pale and deeply uncomfortable. "Dr. Shaw," Aurelia began without preamble, "I have a copy of the affidavit you signed. It claims I consulted you recently and demonstrated symptoms of paranoia. That is completely untrue. You met me once, briefly, at a business seminar last year." Lysander must have twisted the facts. "I need you to tell me the truth," Dr. Shaw sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lysander." He was aggressive. He sent his lawyer. He implied that if I didn't sign, I'd be sued for negligence related to the seminar materials. He framed it as a retrospective professional opinion based on my observation of you in a stressful work environment, saying you were visibly agitated about the company's future. "He lied to you," Aurelia stated simply. "And now that lie is being used to strip me of my human rights. Lysander is facing financial collapse and is using this legal system to loot my estate. If you allow this false affidavit to stand, you are complicit in financial and psychological abuse." She didn't threaten him, she merely laid out the moral cost. The weight of his professional ethics settled on Dr. Shaw. I cannot allow that," he confessed, ashamed. "I didn't realize the extent of what they were doing. I will provide a retraction immediately, stating that the affidavit was signed under duress and based on second-hand, misleading information, and that I have never professionally evaluated your mental state." Aurelia watched him walk away. One more pillar of Lysander's fabricated case had crumbled, thanks to a small glimmer of human conscience overcoming legal intimidation. With the institutional and medical attacks neutralized, Silas insisted on the next critical move: professional validation. "We need to not just refute their claims of instability, we need to prove your superiority," Silas told her. "I've booked you an appointment with Dr. Alastair Finch, no relation, a highly respected forensic neuropsychologist. He will conduct a comprehensive cognitive assessment. This test is completely neutral, and the result will be a bulletproof piece of evidence." The assessment took an entire afternoon. Aurelia underwent hours of rigorous testing: memory recall, executive function, complex problem solving, and mood evaluation. It was mentally exhausting, a forced reflection on her own aging brain, but she approached it with the disciplined focus that had made her a successful investor. 2 days later, the report arrived. Silas read the key finding aloud over the phone, his voice alight with victory. Assessment reveals no signs of cognitive decline, memory impairment, or mood disorder consistent with the petitioner's claims. Ms. Vance performed in the 95th percentile for executive function and complex pattern recognition among her demographic. The subject demonstrates above-average mental competence and a clear, rational understanding of her financial and personal affairs. The result was a devastating blow to Lysander's entire legal strategy. The very thing he sought to prove, her incompetence, was now officially certified as the opposite, by a neutral, court-recognized expert. The final preparations began as the army gathers and final grief. Aurelia met Beatrice Sterling and Caspian Holt in her drawing room. They sat, not as friends, but as co-conspirators in justice. Silas has the report, the social worker's file, the retracted affidavit, and the full financial documentation, Aurelia informed them. The facts are on my side, but the court process itself is the final hurdle. Caspian looked at her, his expression paternal and weary. "Aurelia, we are here for you. We will testify to your character, your long-standing sobriety, and your clear, calculated decision-making. We will be your witnesses. We are your army." Their solidarity brought a quiet, unexpected wave of emotion. Aurelia closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of grief and final acceptance. "Thank you both," she whispered. "But I must confess, the loss is more than the money or the potential freedom. It's the death of a hope. I loved that boy. I supported him not just as an investment, but as family. And to realize that this entire campaign, the lies, the institutional attacks, the emotional cruelty, is driven by nothing more than resentment and greed. The family is dead. The love is dead. I am going to the trial not to save my money, but to bury their abuse and finally, formally, cut the rotting limb from the tree." The acceptance was liberating. She was no longer fighting Lysander. She was fighting for the principle of her own dignity. Later that evening, the heavy linen envelope arrived. It was the formal summons for the conservatorship trial. The date was set for 2 weeks away. Despite all the documentation, the legal process was relentless. She knew that Lysander's lawyer, Ms. Devereux, would still attempt to confuse the narrative, appealing to the emotional bias against the wealthy, eccentric aunt. Aurelia held the summons, feeling the cold, rough paper. She had neutralized every attack, gathered an insurmountable stack of evidence, and assembled her allies. Yet, her freedom and her very identity were still resting on the capricious decision of a single judge. The courtroom, usually a place of dry procedure, felt heavy with the weight of familial destruction. Lysander Thorne sat next to his grim-faced mother, Selina, both exuding a desperate, wounded entitlement. Opposite them sat Aurelia Vance, dressed in a tailored suit of steely grey, flanked by the calming presence of Silas Finch. Her eyes were focused, her posture erect, projecting neither arrogance nor fear, but the quiet certainty of someone who knew the truth. The morning was a painful recitation of Lysander's fabricated narrative. Ms. Devereux, Lysander's lawyer, attempted to paint Aurelia as a recluse whose wealth had fueled eccentric, impulsive, and ultimately self-destructive behavior. She focused on the $313,500 withdrawal, spinning it as proof of financial recklessness rather than strategic divestment. "The petitioner only seeks to protect his aunt from herself, Your Honor," Ms. Devereux argued, her voice smooth and manipulative. "This is a matter of benevolence." Ms. Vance, clearly unable to handle her substantial estate, is now vengefully targeting the family members who simply tried to intervene. When it was Silas Finch's turn, the atmosphere shifted. He didn't rely on theatrics. He relied on the documented, undeniable truth. First, Silas submitted Dr. Alastair Finch's above-average mental competence report, making the medical claims of diminished capacity instantly collapse. Next, he introduced Ms. Chen's report, which refuted the claims of unsafe living conditions and instead noted the highly suspicious nature of the petitioner's complaint. Finally, he introduced the financial ledger, turning the case on its head. "Your Honor, we are not here to debate incompetence," Silas stated, his voice ringing with authority. "We are here to expose predation. We have clear documentation proving that Ms. Vance provided over $300,000 to fund her nephew's failing startup. When she, using her clear and documented business acumen, withdrew that funding to prevent further loss, the petitioner's response was not gratitude, but a calculated, malicious attempt to seize control of her entire estate by declaring her mentally unfit. The judge, Judge Eleanor Hayes, a woman known for her keen legal mind and intolerance for manipulative family litigation, leaned forward. She listened intently as Caspian Holt and Beatrice Sterling took the stand, testifying to Aurelia's stable, rational character. Finally, Silas called Aurelia to the stand for her final testimony. This was her moment, not to defend her accounts, but to deliver a moral judgment against the villain's greed. "Ms. Vance," Silas began, "in your own words, can you explain to the court why you believe your nephew, Lysander Thorne, filed this petition for conservatorship?" Aurelia looked directly at the judge, avoiding the venomous stares of Lysander and Selina. Her voice was steady, calm, and utterly convincing. "Your Honor, my nephew did not file this petition out of concern for my welfare. He filed it because I finally told him no. For years, he leveraged my familial affection as an endless line of credit. When his company failed, he didn't seek responsible financing. He sought to weaponize the legal system against me. This is not a case about my diminishing capacity. It is a case about his total lack of integrity and his assumption that because I was kind, I was weak. She paused, allowing the gravity of her words to settle. They are attempting to use the noble mechanism of conservatorship, which is meant to protect the truly vulnerable, to instead silence a woman who finally chose to protect herself. If I lose this case, Your Honor, the precedent set will not be about my finances. It will be a terrifying message to every independent person, that if you have wealth, your own family can legally erase your capacity for choice the moment you stop being profitable to them. Her final words were a quiet, powerful declaration of sovereignty. I am competent. I am capable. And I refuse to allow my family's greed to define my dignity. Judge Hayes did not call another witness. She recessed the court for 30 minutes, returning with a judgment that was swift, precise, and utterly vindicating. The court has reviewed the overwhelming evidence presented by the respondent's counsel, Mr. Finch, Judge Hayes announced, her gaze sweeping over Lysander and Selina. The petitioner has failed to provide any credible evidence of diminished capacity or financial mismanagement on the part of Ms. Aurelia Vance. Conversely, the respondent has presented irrefutable proof that the petitioner, Mr. Lysander Thorne, and his accomplice, Ms. Selina Thorne, engaged in a campaign of harassment, coercion, and the filing of a demonstrably false and malicious petition. The verdict was a total victory. Judge Hayes continued, imposing sanctions that were designed to punish and deter. The petition for guardianship is hereby denied with prejudice. Furthermore, the court finds that the petitioners acted in bad faith and abused the legal process. Mr. Lysander Thorne and Ms. Selina Thorne are ordered to pay all of Ms. Vance's legal costs, which the court finds to be reasonable. Finally, the temporary restraining order against both petitioners is converted into a permanent, legally binding restraining order, prohibiting contact and approach within 500 feet of Ms. Vance and her residence. This case is closed. The reaction in the courtroom was instantaneous and cathartic. Silas Finch squeezed Aurelia's arm in shared triumph. Across the aisle, the villain's collapse was total. Lysander sprang up, his face purple with shock and fury. You can't do this. You just bankrupted me. The company will fold. She's ruined me. Selina, defeated and distraught, tugged desperately at his sleeve, whispering harsh, panicked commands. They were trapped, forced to watch their entire scheme, financial, emotional, and legal, come crashing down around them. Lysander's entitlement had finally met its immovable object. Aurelia stood, gathering her papers. She did not gloat, nor did she feel a surge of vengeful satisfaction. She simply observed the wreckage they had made of their own lives. They had traded their family bond for a desperate legal gamble and lost everything. Their access to her wealth, their reputation, and their freedom to approach her. Aurelia walked out of the courtroom with Silas and her allies, leaving the venomous scene behind. The cycle of abuse was closed. The months that followed were characterized by peace and the moral of the story. The court order prevented Lysander and Selina from making any further trouble, and the financial sanctions ensured they were far too distracted by their own insolvency to bother her again. Ethelred Tech, already on life support, collapsed completely within the month. Aurelia poured her boundless energy into life outside of family drama. She resumed her passion for history, planning a trip to the archaeological sites of the Mediterranean, something she had always put off in favor of checking on Lysander's progress. She spent her afternoons tending to her newly planted rose garden, and her evenings enjoying long, laughter-filled dinners with Beatrice and Caspian. Her money, no longer a source of stress and predatory attention, became a tool for genuine self-fulfillment. She joined a local arts foundation, funding a program for young artists, a true philanthropic endeavor, free of the toxic obligation that had defined her relationship with Lysander. The moral of her ordeal became clear, not through bitterness, but through wisdom and autonomy. She was sitting on her porch one quiet evening, watching a glorious sunset, when the profound lesson crystallized. She wasn't just not incompetent. She was fiercely, deliberately sovereign. They taught me the greatest lesson of all, she thought, savoring the cool glass of wine in her hand. I spent years believing that obligation defined family, and that my financial support equaled love. They believed my assets were their birthright. But they were wrong. True freedom is not just having money. It is choosing who deserves your time and your money, and having the courage to withdraw both when they are misused. She had earned her peace by reclaiming her no. And that, my friends, is the heavy truth behind the headlines. I went into that courtroom to defend my accounts, but I left having defended my very identity. It was a harrowing, ugly fight, but winning meant achieving a peace I never knew was possible. I didn't get my nephew back, but I got myself back, and that was the far more valuable asset. Did you like this story of vindication and reclaiming power? Have you ever faced a similar battle where you had to fight for your boundaries against the people you loved? What steps would you have taken when that lawyer showed up on your doorstep? Let me know your thoughts and insights in the comments below. Your stories and experiences are vital to building this community of strength. And if you want to continue hearing stories where wisdom triumphs over injustice, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and of course, subscribe to the Amália Diaries. Until next time, stay strong, stay documented, and guard your peace fiercely.